this is a lot of fun. I'm heading north up the coast of Lake Superior, where I'm going to cross into Canada near the last city on the North Shore Scenic Highway, Grand Portage. But first, I have a little confession. A long time ago, years ago, I said in Season 2 that the Native American holy site of Pipestone, Minnesota was the only national monument in Minnesota. It's not often I make a claim without doing some research, and I had the pleasure of finding out from a viewer that no, Pipestone is not the only national monument in Minnesota. There's actually two, and I'm going to be passing by the other one today. The border crossing, the city, the reservation, the state park, and the national monument all go by the same name, Grand Portage. Grand Portage is noted by its significant geography. It lies at the terminus of the Pigeon River, a significant inland stream that now acts as the US-Canada border thanks to the Pork and Beans War. The Pigeon River leads into the deepest parts of the North American continent from the Great Lakes, which is the deepest you can get in North America from the Atlantic. The reason this is so significant is what it means for water navigation. There's a narrow strip of land here called the Height of Land Portage. If you go up the Pigeon River as far as you can go, there's a small strip of land that's about a quarter-mile long. It's the only spot where Ontario and Minnesota touch by land. On one side is water that goes out the St. Lawrence to the Atlantic. On the other side of this strip is a watershed of the Nelson River, which goes up to the Arctic Ocean through the Hudson Bay. Grand Portage was a major outpost where travelers from the interior of the North Woods could access the rest of the world through the St. Lawrence River. Why would anyone want to go this deep into North America? The earliest white settlers of the region, which would be the French, fueled a major fashion economy with the animals of these forests by trapping for fur pelts. We're going to talk a lot about the fur trade this season. It was the biggest economic driver out here for hundreds of years. A major economic objective of the early United States was to wrestle the industry away from their British and Canadian neighbors. For the Native Americans across the Midwest, it was a source of prosperity, income, trade, and eventually the collapse of their way of life. Again, all of it due to the fur trade. I think Grand Portage is a good place to introduce the fur trade because it's going to be a big part of the history of this region of the world. To get these lucrative fur pelts, trappers would trap beaver, which were fashioned into hats and worn by Europeans as a symbol of status. Beaver pelts, when prepared correctly, were malleable so they could be made into a variety of shapes while also being resilient and soft. To ready the pelts, they would be pummeled, shrunk, and thickened by repeated boiling while being pressed and steamed into shape. They made them into top hats and winter coats. They were used by the military. They wouldn't be destroyed immediately by rain. The demand for beaver was so intense and the industry was so lucrative that they were almost pushed to extinction. It's not agreed upon why, but it seems a change in fashion and the availability of other materials finally saved the beaver from extinction. So let's say you're a European looking to get into the fur trade in North America. Maybe in your teens or 20s, and you want to go into the North Woods for the first time and start making a small fortune. You would cross the Atlantic and take the St. Lawrence River into the Great Lakes. From there, your journey would begin at Grand Portage. So far, your entire trip has been on water because it's much easier and faster to travel this way. You grab your oak canoe and you're ready to take the Pigeon River into the North Woods. There's just one thing. The very end of the Pigeon River is a series of major rapids and a waterfall called the High Falls, the highest waterfall in Minnesota. Because the end of the Pigeon River is so treacherous, fur traders would portage, which is the act of picking up your watercraft, such as a canoe or kayak, and they would walk it over land to another body of water. To get around these dangerous obstacles, fur traders would partake in what was called the Grand Portage. It's an 8.5-mile stretch between Fort Charlotte and Grand Portage Bay. You would carry ammo and other supplies out, and then carry packs of beaver pelts, sometimes weighing 90 pounds each, on the way back to Grand Portage Bay on the North Shore. Portaging is common wherever there's lots of bodies of water. The Vikings would portage all over today's Russia, and fur traders would do it all over the North Woods. The Grand Portage was a trail from the Pigeon River through a narrow dip in the Sawtooth Mountains. You can see from a nearby hilltop where the easiest way through was. Also, a geographically convenient bay was also located here, which made it the ideal location for a fort. rain kind of comes and goes, but there's one thing that's making it even more uncomfortable. As you can see, my windshield to the left gets foggy. First I get soaking wet, and then I'm getting hit with a blast of humidity. I'm almost there. Still going north. So again, you're that new fur trader. From Fort Charlotte, you would take the Pigeon River inland through lake after lake as far as you can go. Then you'd stop at that height of land portage we were talking about earlier. Sticking with the scenario, if you were a new fur trader, you were in for a treat. Fur traders conducted a ceremony here for all newcomers to the North Woods. Sources from that era describe how there would be a little sort of baptism where they would sprinkle you with water, recite songs, and swear an oath that if they ever brought other newcomers here, they would do the same for them. They also swear not to kiss another voyageur's wife without her consent. Oh, and I haven't mentioned this, but the French called their fur traders voyageurs, which is why Minnesota calls it Voyageurs National Park. Anyway, to wrap up the ceremony, they conclude with a gunfire salute and toast with wine before resuming their journey inland. So, once you gather your pelts, at the end of the season, with a little good timing, you'll be on your way back to Grand Portage with your canoes full of furs in time for the biggest celebration in the fur trade industry, Rendezvous. I'll explain what Rendezvous is and why it's a big deal. The shore keeps going and going. There's no doubt the rain and humidity are making this stretch seem a lot longer than it really is. All I can think about is how Canada, which is so close, seems to be hidden and somewhat shrouded in rain and fog, like the gateway to the country is some big yawning mystery. I'm pressing onward up the shore along the slopes of the Minnesotan Sawtooths, and I'm getting closer every minute. The Grand Portage Outpost was a major trade hub at the center of a water network where the French, British, American, and local Ojibwe would all meet in a grand summit of languages, customs, and trades. Fur traders of the day were nomadic, solitary, outdoorsy people. They didn't run into each other that often, and they lived off the land, making money for retirement off the trade. The most intelligent fur traders would speak English, French, and Ojibwe. There was a time that all the fur traders got together, though. It's the biggest party in the fur trade, Rendezvous. Every year at the end of the hunting season, white fur traders and Ojibwe Native Americans would all get together, sell furs, replenish their supplies, talk business and network, participate in competitions like racing and target shooting, sing songs, drink, and basically party. You also would have had your fair share of fistfights. That rendezvous was held here, in Grand Portage, every year. Even today, the Grand Portage Indian Reservation holds the Rendezvous Powwow during the second weekend in August. You can see the fairgrounds set up right here in the middle of town, where it's held every year. Right next to the border is one last stop. The Grand Portage State Park, the only state park that's managed jointly by Minnesota and a reservation. There's a paved pathway and wheelchair ramp to view the High Falls, the biggest obstacle that the Grand Portage was made to bypass. Again, I'm skipping all the North Shore stuff because the real adventure lies on the other side of the Pigeon River, which I'm about to cross now. I'm finally visiting our neighbor to the north, Canada.